Hello everybody, welcome to another Conan Exiles custom map tutorial series video, and this is video number 27. And in this video we're going to cover building spline limiters and also the climb blocker volume and what you can do with these two tools. And say you're having issues with players climbing mountains that you don't want them to climb, or walls, or in the dungeon. You don't need them to climb over things that might ruin and spoil the adventure, so you need to kind of block them from doing things. Particularly, these mechanics can lead to kind of ruining the experience. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get into it and delve into how to use these tools and what the spline blocker is and what the building block or climb blocker volume is. So let me go ahead and transition over my desktop and let's get cracking. Okay, so first off, obviously you see my island here, and for an example what we're going to do is we're going to cover how to keep players from, say, not building, but climbing up this mountain and getting to the top and seeing that there's no water flowing out of the secret hole in my mountain here. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start with that. So first off, what we can do is we can go down to through our list here, and we can go down through the filter and go down to systems. And if we can find the systems folder, let me see, it's gonna be here somewhere. Systems, right here. Okay, so systems folder, and what we want to type is S-P-L-I-N-E, spline, and we're looking for the spline build limit, not the tester, but the actual spline build limit. Okay, and the first thing is what we'll do is we're going to cover on how we're not going to build on top of my mountain. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do that first. I probably said climb, but let's go ahead and do the build limiter and kind of cover that. Okay, so when you first place it out, it's going to look like a little ball here, or actually the little ball is missing off the actor. What you're going to see is this white line with a square. What you want to do is you want to attach your mouse to this little square at the very end here, the opposite end, when you first initially place it out. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take and hold down your Alt key on your keyboard, and you're going to drag out, and this will give you 1 point. Okay, now this kind of creates a circle. Now what I want to do is I want to make this circle envelop the top of this area so nobody can build on top of this mountain, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stretch this out. And what you want to do is stretch only the spline points that you initially start with. Okay, do not use the base one and stretch that one. You can, however, right click on the spline and go add a spline point, and you can actually see that spline point. Also, what's really nice too, and here's some little helpful tips on this. Notice the line is really thin and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So what you can do is you can actually go over here in the details panel, and what we can do is we can actually click the scale visualization button here in the editor part under our details, and that will widen our spline. Also what we can do too is notice how the selected spline turns red. What we can also do is the unselected spline, let's go ahead and say I just want to do it in, let's do bright green, blue. You can do whatever color. Let's do blue. That looks visually easier to see on a green background. So now you can actually visualize where your spline is and what it's going to do. So let's go ahead and let's stretch it out and kind of fit it along our mountain. Now you can also click on a spline point and move the entire spline. But once you click on a point and you begin to individually stretch it out, that's how it works. Okay, so you can click off it, click on a point, and it will give you the ability to move the entire thing. And that's your base point where we started at. Okay, so any other spline point are stretchable and movable. Okay, so what we want to do is, if you want, you can always move your base point around and get it set here like so. Okay, so once you click off it, click on it once, there you have it. You can move the entire thing. Click on it again on the point and it's movable. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and stretch this out. And what you want to do is you want to make sure, and you can right click here and add a spline point under the mesh here, but we're going to make this go a little bit higher in the air. And what it does is it creates an invisible trace to the terrain on your map, and it keeps people from building wherever this spline on the inside is not buildable. On the outside, you have areas that are buildable. So I'm going to just go ahead and kind of bring this out, because I don't want anybody to build on top of this, right? So I'll go ahead, and what we're going to do is come down. And what you also want to do too, and I forgot to point this out, Windows levels, make sure that you put this on your persistent level, because what you want it to persist, all right? You can probably put it on the level loading on the height maps individually, but sometimes that don't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. So put this on the persistent just to make sure that it persists constantly, so you have no issues when people are loading in and loading out. Okay, so now what should happen here is that this, like I said, there's an invisible wall that's wrapping around, and just envision a big blue barrel kind of enveloping on the outside here, wrapping this entire island top, okay? And that they won't be able to build. So now what we should be able to do is go in here, and hopefully this doesn't, the editor don't make me look like a liar. We are going to go ahead and hit play from here. And what this should do is this should block us from building any type of structures that are inside the game. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to hit escape, go to the admin panel. I'm going to grab some sandstone blocks, okay, and some foundations, and we'll do a couple walls just for fun. Okay. All right, so now what I shouldn't be able to do is, you should get the building is not allowed here, okay? And before I drop down off the mountainside, let me make sure I'm in God mode so I don't go splat and have to sit here and mess with this again. So now what we should do is be able to go down here, and now we should be able to get the green glowy building thing saying we can build. But if we get close to the mountain, we can't build here. So this will block us from building and building up on top of the mountain. So nobody can build up there, okay? But we can build right here. And if I remember, it was shift, yeah, to give us some elevation. And there you have it. All right, we can build there. Now, coming out of build mode, now we're able to climb this mountain, right? So we're gonna go ahead and we can actually climb this mesh and climb up to the very top, and I should hit my stamina meter, but hopefully we won't have to climb too far. Okay. All right, get our stamina back up, climb up. Okay, so now we can climb up here, and once again, we're not allowed to build, okay? So that's what the build limiter does, so I'm gonna hit escape here, okay? So like I said, make sure that's in your persistent level, okay? And what's best practice too, like I've been trying to, and I try to remind myself too, because sometimes I get ahead, I'm into building, I forget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also edit and rename this, and you can rename these. So spline build limit, island starter, okay? And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go move to and create a new folder and call this build spline limiters, so you know what it means, okay? That way you're organized, and you can find them if you need to find them, move them if they're causing a problem, or you need to reshape them because they're too large, too small, whatever you might need to do. You can find it in that folder and adjust it. And like I said, I try to remember to put some of these things in the into their own folders. Of course, I got these guys here. I forgot to move a little bit back ago, but these are actually caves, I think. Yeah, I gotta put those in a cave, my cave folder. But yeah, try to remember to do that. It is hard because you're excited, you're building your map, or you completely forget because you're just too busy and you're into things. Okay, so that covers the build limiters, and what you can do with these too is, like I said, you can use these to block basically any type of structure from being put anywhere in the world, depending on what you needed to do. Now, there's mods out there that remove these limiters. You don't have to run those on your server if you need to keep people from building in specific areas. Normally, these are used obviously for like admin areas or starter areas, so people don't sit there and build in the starter area, especially on your custom map. It would be smart if I put one over here and in the starting area. That way nobody builds on the ship in the spawn point for our character. So that's where you would use this as well. So nobody can build anything in here and cause problems from entering into your server and spawning in on your character creation. You have a giant blocky building here screwing up your character creation screen. Okay? Or you can basically create an island off in the middle of nowhere or area on your game where you don't have that problem, and you can put a blocker into to keep people from building a hole. Like Savage Wilds, if they didn't have one of those, people could build whole walls and block the cave so you couldn't get out. Okay? All right, so now climbing blockers. What are these used for? And like I said, what we want to do is, say I want to keep people from climbing up on top of my mountain. What I need to do is block them. I don't want them to ruin the experience in the adventure. I don't want them to climb in the dungeon, climb over a wall that I need there to keep them from cheating and getting to the boss a little bit earlier. Whatever the case may be, you need to stop them and force them to follow a certain path so that way they don't screw up the experience and screw up the dungeon and things like that, or an area where you might not want them to build on top of a mountain. You don't want them to get up there, okay? You want a particular mountain or whatever, an area, a hill, whatever it may be. You don't want them to climb up into an area and cause havoc and destruction or whatever it is that you might be trying to protect or keep in your theme. So let's go up here into our placeable, our modes area, and what we're going to do is type build blocker, or sorry, climb blocker, not build, climb blocking volume. Okay, so we can get that simpler right here. You just drag it out, okay, and you place it in the world, and it comes in a little yellow box, okay, like so. And what's also about these two, what you can do as well is if you want, you can go in on the blueprint and change it, copy the blueprint from your mod folder and change the color of these extents if you like, and widen them and thicken them. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and just cover how to expand these. So what you don't want to do is scale these like so, okay, like a mesh. Control Z. What you want to do is you want to use the extents, which is the default box extent. And what you do, you want to use these to scale it. So it starts out with 1,000 by 1,000 by 1,000 Z scale, and X and Y and Z. So what you want to do is you want to go into the box on the X, and what we're going to do is expand and extend our climb blocking volume like so. And it's kind of hard to see with the lighting and with it being yellow. They should have done these in green. That would have been more handy because green is much brighter on a screen. And then we can take our Y and scale it like so. Okay, and I'm just making this a little too large. Okay, and I'm going to scale down my X like so. And basically what we do is we just kind of adjust it, and I can make the top portion of this not climbable, and then when people get to that point, it's going to stop them from climbing. However, I'm just going to go ahead and put it all the way down to the base here, and like so, and do this. Now also what you can do is you can take your perspective and go top down, and I can zoom out here and we can see what it's covering on our island here. So we can actually see, because I got the climbing blocker volume picked here, and I would recommend putting this on your persistent level as well, but it can also be on height maps too. But if you want to find them, also put them in a folder, which I will need to do. But what you can do is just line it up to where the area where you don't want them to climb, and if you have to, you can extend it. Oops, I'm not going to use my transform here. Just extend it through here on your screen over here like so, and adjust your extents, and then use your transform to move it. Okay, so now I'm enveloping the area. All right, I'm going to go back down to perspective, and what I should be able to do now is load in here, hit play, and we should not be able to climb up the side of our mountain here. Okay, and like I said, these are pretty self-explanatory. I cannot climb this. Okay, so anything in the area that box covers in the invisible box, you will not be able to climb. So if we go down here, we should be able to climb it because I'm not blocking it. So there you go. like so. Gonna run out of stamina. Ooh, just made it. And I want to attempt to climb it. You cannot climb this. Now, one thing you got to note too is be careful when using those, because say you need a place that's not climbable, but also you need a place where they kind of hop up to a certain point or level, but it's not way up. Just be careful on how you set it up, because if I want somebody to be able to jump up here, what will happen is that'll keep them from actually initially getting to where they need to go. Now, obviously, you got to be careful with meshes and how you place them, because if you, like I'm showing you here, I don't want people to climb the mountain, but if I leave an area to where they can kind of hop up, they'll be able to hop their way up, but then you'll get limited. So just be careful, pay attention to those things as well. Those are little tidbits of information that will help you in your designing of your map. So like I said, just figure out how to use them and place them strategically and what you need them for, but don't use them to where you cause the experience for your players to lose their minds and be like, well, this should be climbable. What's so important? And if you're not really blocking anything important up there, and it's not going to hurt anybody to climb, you should just leave it so it's climbable. But this is, like I said, this is a good way of using these, and the reason for them is to keep people from building on NPC spawn points. In some maps, in some cases, you might want players to be able to block NPCs from building, but chances are if you build your map correctly and line it up correctly and lay it out correctly, people should be able to play without having too much interference with NPCs, unless you're just sadistic and you want NPCs to spawn on people's buildings and camps and etc. and destroy them. So, sometimes I can be sadistic like that. You just never know. All right. So with that, without further ado, that basically covers those. I mean, those are really simple tools, and I'm going to keep this video short. So this is kind of a shorty, about a 20-minute one. Not a whole lot really to go in depth with the build blockers and the climbing blocker. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory, simple to use, simple to employ. Now you know where to find them, where to look for them, and how to basically employ them wherever you might need on your map. I'm not sure what the next area will cover. I'll probably cover lore books and the lore books and data table and NPC lore. We'll see about that. I got to make sure everything's working with that, because I've had some issues with the lore books, with the client interactables where you actually interact with the lore book. I've been having problems with those on my Empire Stygia, so Funcom has changed those, and every time they tweak something, it kind of messes with them. So I just want to make sure when I do the lesson that we're not carrying over to 45 minutes to an hour trying to do lore books, because they are a little bit in depth and it requires a little bit of bouncing back and forth between data tables and stuff like that. So I want to make sure I go ahead and refresh myself, so that way I can do the tutorial and lay it out pretty quickly and self-explanatory without bumbling through it, because I feel like a few of my tutorials I was bumbling through, and I don't want to give you guys that feeling that I'm just blabbering and we're losing time, valuable time. So, with that being said, thank you guys for your support. Thanks for being here. And like I said, if there's anything else I can cover or feel that I need to cover an area that I might have missed or didn't go over very well, just let me know in the comments or in the Discord, and I will try to answer those. So, without further ado, thank you guys. Have a very good day, and I'll see you in the next video.